Hello everybody, Timothy Bailey with Project Learn and our video today. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about American culture, but I'm going to answer some questions, right? So we're looking at Americans. Here's some couple pictures. The difficulty in talking about American culture, unlike some other countries sometimes, is America is made up of so many different kinds of people, which is amazing for us to experience, but makes it a little more difficult to talk about what American culture is. Because there's not one large population that makes this country up. Another difficulty, which is what we're going to talk about now, is sort of the idea of Americans from movies, TV shows, things like that. Because a lot of times what you see in movies and TV shows, well, that may or may not be how things really are. So this comes from a website I was lucky enough to find. And I won't get through all of them. I'm going to talk about them. So this can be a listening activity for you. You can ask your teacher, ask your American friends, your American wife or husband or whoever, right, what they think about these questions. So there are 37 things that Americans do in movies or TV shows that truly confuse non-Americans. So let's go ahead, right? We'll try to get through as many as we can. Number one, do Americans really grow up with a specific, now we just lost it, university in mind and call their dream school? Or is that just a movie trope because it's just so bizarre to me? Well, in my experience, for myself and my family or friends that I know of, this is not entirely true. I didn't have a school in mind when I was young. And even if people do, often as you get farther and farther along, closer to the process of going to university, that school changes. So if you find I don't really like school, or maybe I'm just not good at it, or maybe I don't want to move far away from my parents, or maybe I want to work and go to school, any number of reasons, those schools start changing. And people end up at different other schools. And for some schools, right, a school that might be very good in the sciences might not be good in the arts. And when you were a child, you wanted to study science, but then later you wanted to study art. So a lot of reasons. So I would say number one, I don't find that to be true. Do Americans complain about fluorescent lights in real life as much as they do in TV? Fluorescent lights, often kind of the long light that you see in public places. I can't think that I've ever really complained about that. So I'm going to say number two is not true either, or my experience. Do Americans really just go to bars and drink like 6 shots of whiskey and call it a night? That's how Americans drink on TV, and it's weird. So if the question is, do they drink this alcohol and then just leave, I have not ever experienced that. Now, Americans, many of them when they're younger, right, once they turn 21, they might spend a lot of time in bars, but it's usually like the whole evening, perhaps, right? It's not ever that I've seen just really quick, drink, and then leave, right? The only time I ever saw that was at a coffee shop when people would do espresso, right? There seems to be 2 sorts of espresso coffee people, the slow sippers and the people who, and then they're out the door. But for alcoholic drinks and bars, for Americans, I've never seen that. This is supposed to be what, I imagine. What do Americans actually get fed lunches or in schools, right? I thought this was just a movie thing. So yes, all schools, both public and private, I believe, so kindergarten, preschool through high school, must serve lunch. And that's free. Well, not always. That has changed since I was a child. I don't know if it always has to be free or if students have to pay some part of it. But they do have to be provided lunch, and there has to be a way to pay for it. If students cannot pay for it, then many, if not most schools must also offer some sort of reduced or free lunch. Now, for Americans, if your parents don't want to spend the money, or they don't like the school lunches, they think maybe they're unhealthy or something, you can also pack a lunch, P-A-C-K, which is what I did for a long time. So that means that your mom, dad, grandma, or grandpa, or whoever's taking care of you, puts together a sandwich and fruit or vegetables or potato chips in a bag or a cool little lunch box, and you take that to lunch. Okay. So yes, I would say we do get lunches in school, right? Universities, not so much, although universities often do have cafeterias, and part of your overall tuition, one of the things could be partly to pay for the food. Just depends on how your tuition is broken down. Do Americans eat s'mores as much as movies say they do? Well, the question here is, do you know what a s'more is? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a picture of this. Again, keeping in mind, right, America, the diverse amount of people that we have. In my experience, while s'mores are not a everyday thing or, highly frequent thing that we eat, we do often eat them, my family, when we go camping, right? Particularly if you're going camping with children, right? Children will like them. If you go camping with a group of adults, perhaps not, unless people want to remember their childhood, be nostalgic, or, if they just like them. So yes, we do often eat these. This is a camping treat. So if your children go to camp for the summer for like a week or two, if you go camping in a tent with your kids, with some Americans or whatever, they may very well eat these. So my answer to that question is probably we do not eat them as much as TV shows or movies might imagine, but we do often eat them. It is a camping food, right? Just like hot dogs, hamburgers are a 4th of July or Labor Day sort of summer holiday food, s'mores are a camping food. Do Americans actually have school mascots, or is that just a movie thing? No, this one is absolutely true. Perhaps the truest of all so far. I cannot think of a school that does not have a mascot of some kind. And you'll see it at the school. It might be on the walls, on posters. It might be on T-shirts or school jackets. If the school has a sport, which they probably do, it'll be on the uniform, on the helmets. So yes, and for many countries, this American sports and school together is often probably a very strange thing. I know while I was in China teaching at a middle school, there was almost no organized sports. The children learned table tennis and they learned badminton and things like that, but there wasn't the same sports environment as what you see here. So if you send your children to school, you're going to see something that might be quite different from the country that you come from. One of the things, you will see a mascot. So my school that I graduated from was a falcon, and a falcon is a kind of bird. And I'll show it to you quickly, right? Kind of a big hunting bird here, right? So typically, the mascot is some sort of fierce or strong sort of character. Not always, but often, right? Even in Akron, if you're watching this video, like many of you probably are, and you live in Akron, where Project Learn is, right? The Akron minor league baseball team are called the Rubber Ducks, right? And a rubber duck is a toy that people used to play with in the bathtub. Akron is the rubber capital of the world. So the two go together. That is their mascot. Number 7, why in shows and films do Americans always go to the fridge and get a bottle of water and dramatically drink it in an argument? So this question isn't really asking, does this happen? If that was the question, my answer would be no, we don't really do that. I think it's a movie or TV thing just to add to the drama somehow. So I'm fighting with someone, I go to the refrigerator, right? And it somehow makes it more intense or dramatic. That would be my answer to the why. So the question, does this happen? Not usually that I know of. And the why, just to add drama or intensity. Do Americans really chug milk out of the carton, or is it just a TV show thing? So, right, a carton of milk is technically this little box here, this that you see, right? This one, I would say, is possibly true for some people. In my experience, in my family's experience, we did not do this. My mother would have been very unhappy for me to go to the refrigerator, grab the milk, and chug means to drink quickly, right, and intensely. To chug the milk, she would have been not very happy, right? And it's also sort of not sanitary, not clean if other people are drinking the milk. So for this one, I would say it's probably somewhere in the middle. There are probably people that do this. Certainly if you are single and you live alone and it's your milk, you could do that if you wanted. In general, my experience, I don't see a lot of people doing that. And again, in terms of Americans in film and TV, if we do it, we don't do it near as much as the TV shows or movies. So why do Americans have so many school dances? Are they all real or just stuff that is in movies, like homecoming, prom, winter formal? Are they different? Do you have a dance for every season? What is going on? So yes, just like sports, in question, I don't remember what it was, 6 are mascots. This one is true. Typically, some religious schools or private schools may not have as many. But in general, I would say yes, it is true. Schools have dances quite often, at least probably once a year, if not twice a year, schools. And it's not usually until high school. I don't recall. They might start in middle school, possibly, but I don't recall dances being a big thing until high school. And then you do have 2 proms, junior and senior prom. Those are big dances. And then homecoming dance, right? That's often celebrates, for example, seniors or whatever. It's often tied to the football game, if your school has a football team. So these dances do exist. The reason why, I don't know. They've just become part of the American educational system. And I feel like in some ways they are perhaps less important school-wide than they perhaps used to be. There are probably more students now that don't go to the dances, don't want to do them, than in the past. That's my guess. I went. I probably didn't do much, didn't stay much. I wasn't very into them, and my friends mostly weren't either. So you can see just from my experience, the dances sort of, they exist, but not everyone participates in them. Number 10, why do Americans in TV shows say, I went to Europe this summer? Like, where in Europe? Something like, why not just say which country? So this is what I would call sort of an American-centric viewpoint. For many Americans, they refer to things in the rest of the world in huge groups. And often, unfortunately, sort of in a negative way, America is the center and everything else doesn't get specified. So yes, I went to Europe. I'm eating African food instead of saying I'm eating Congolese food or whatever. Just something that Americans do. And I think, again, it's just for many Americans, the rest of the world just exists often in large chunks, right? So South America is one whole chunk, right, of the globe, not like many countries. All right, so we're running out of time. That is it. I wanted to share with you here. If you think of something that is strange, right, something that you want to know, is this real in TVs or movie, email me and I will talk about that in another video. Also, here are a couple links that you can check out on American culture. Thank you and have a great day.